Let's go back in time. Check out J.D. Vance and what he was about as a senator. He is our vice president.
Mr. Chairman and Ms. Sohn, thank you for coming before us today. So I want to take my line of questioning a slightly different direction from some of the other folks, and I think just to be direct with you, Ms. Sohn, there are actually areas of substantive agreement between the two of us on some of these issues. But I also notice that you are a participant in what I would call this weird racialization of American political rhetoric in the last few years, and in particular, I think coming out of a desire to give equal opportunity and fairness to every American, regardless of skin color. That's, of course, a very good thing. There's been this weird trend in certain corners of American politics to be very, very racialized and even to criticize explicit racial groups almost as a pejorative. And you, unfortunately, have participated in that. And I want to ask just a couple of questions on that. But before I do, I want to illustrate this by pointing out something that's going on in my state. We have a very, very bad train crash in East Palestine, Ohio. It's caused a terrible chemical spill, likely environmental consequences as far as the eye can see. And of course, we're doing as much as we can to help constituents on the ground. But I note that Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg yesterday, when he made some public remarks, instead of commenting on this or talking about the issue or giving any reason to think that he's focused on one of the major transportation mishaps in this country over the last couple of years, he decided to instead focus on the terrible scourge of too many white men in the construction industry. And I find that preposterous, both on its own face, but also as a focus from the Secretary of Transportation. So I want to read you a tweet with that backdrop in mind. And I quote, "President Obama is a raggedy black supremacist president, and his cowardly enablers would rather kill everybody than stop killing white people. Do you think a person who said that should be appointed or confirmed to the FCC?"
Could you read? I didn't quite get that. Could you just reread that? Would you mind?
President Obama is a raggedy black supremacist president, and his cowardly enablers would rather kill everybody than stop killing white people. Do you think a person, yes or no, who says that should be appointed to the FCC?
That's great.
I would need to know more of the context, honestly.
Okay, well, I think
can't really
clearly a
answer the
person who said that should not be appointed to the FCC.
Okay.
And in fact, you retweeted the exact same thing, only with President Trump instead of President Obama, and the races reversed. Let me read another tweet, and let me ask you if this is an acceptable thing for an FCC commissioner. "Angry black woman, not a good look, Judge Brown Jackson. Would a person who tweeted that pejoratively be deserving of the position that you're seeking?"
I think it has nothing to do with the position that they're seeking, so not necessarily.
So I think that's
I know I
Ms. Sohn,
tweeted something about
come
Judge
on.
Kavanaugh, right?
I think that's preposterous. Come on. You tweeted at Judge Kavanaugh, "Angry white man, not a good look, Judge Kavanaugh." Now, here's why I think that it's relevant. We live in a country that's very diverse. People come from very different backgrounds. And one of the things that preserves what little racial comedy and harmony we have in this country is that our leaders don't use that racial comedy and harmony like a toddler who discovered their daddy's gun. You talk about racial issues in a way that will inflame the very worst things in our country. And I fear that if you're given this position of authority, you will use that authority to continue to inflame and to continue potentially even to censor based on some of these ideas. Now, I've just illustrated a couple of ways that we talk about these issues, or some of our leaders talk about these issues. I hope that I never do. And if I do, I hope my constituents will hold me to account for it.
Okay,
But one of the things that I fear here is that you're being appointed to a position with an incredible amount of control over the way that we communicate with each other, the way that we debate with each other, the way that our politics actually manifests itself in the public debate. And I guess I'd ask you, do you think those comments are a good thing for the American people to hear, given how much power you will have if you get confirmed?
Senator, I made those comments in my role as either a private citizen or a public advocate, and they will have absolutely no bearing on how I would act as an FCC commissioner.
Ms. Sohn, I appreciate that, but they reveal something about how you see the world, how you think about the world, and how you feel about the world. So I understand and respect that you made them in your capacity as a private citizen, but they are reflective of a person who will have a lot of power if the Senate confirms your nomination. And this is why I'm going to oppose your nomination, despite some areas of substantive agreement. Thank you, Ms. Sohn.
Senator, if I could just say, I can't just walk into the FCC and say, okay, Gigi Sohn wants all these things to happen, and they will happen. Okay, first of all, I'm not going to be the chair, and let's put that one on the table and put that to bed, because that's the latest K Street rumor, right? That the White House wants to make me the chair. That's false. Okay, you have to, as an FCC commissioner, you have to follow the law. You have to follow the Administrative Procedure Act. There's a procedure before you.
And then you change
You have to
it.
follow the record. You have
With
to
the
meet with
Supreme Court,
stakeholders.
Circuit Court.
You can't just willy-nilly make a decision based on what your predilections are.
You're lying.
And if I were to do that, well, first of all, I'd have to get 2 other votes, unlikely. But if
Which
that
you've
were to
already thought
happen,
about, clearly.
a court could reverse it, because you have to follow
court could
process. And I
reverse
think
what
it's
is
really
already
important
done.
for people who think that I'm some sort of Svengali who could just walk into the FCC and make it bend to my will, that I can't do that under the
Okay.
law.
Ms.
Not
Sohn,
under
look,
the
I
law.
appreciate that, and I appreciate that we have a constitution and we have certain procedures we have to follow. Of course, I'm one of 100 senators, and I can't walk into this body and make things exactly as I want them. The point is not that you'll have complete power over the FCC. The point is that we live in a country that is undergoing a series of very toxic movements in the way that we talk about one another. And I think in particular, the racial dialogue, the racial rhetoric that you've used is disqualifying. Whether you have a lot of power or a little power, I don't think it's what we need in our public administrators. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Next